Sunderland, Newcastle, and I must admit it was terrific stuff, not least because McCoy was in co-commentary, but it was an excellent watch, and the great rivalry between these two clubs. Graeme, you've managed one of them, of course, Newcastle United. What was your take on it?
Newcastle, you could see far superior team. That gap between a very good Premier League team and a team that's mid-table, hoping to get in the playoff positions of the Championship. That's quite a gap. What I didn't notice most about it, I'm like you, I really enjoyed the game.
Yeah,
I thought it was very entertaining. What was jumping out at me when I was watching was the refereeing. No VAR involved. Who's the referee? Poulsen? Who was refereeing it? Is it Poulsen? Who was a Premier League referee?
Poulsen, yeah.
Yeah, and because there was no VAR, you let a lot more go. And it's as if when they're refereeing with VAR, they're nervous and pulling everything up. Just an observation.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really good game of football, and the referee played his part in making it a really good game of football by allowing a bit more to go.
Well, I mean, Newcastle went into it, Simon, as we know, after a run of 7 losses in 8.
Yeah.
They've got themselves back to winning ways. I mean, Eddie actually post-match was asked if the win would ease the pressure on him.
For me, I don't involve myself in it, so I take myself right away from it. I haven't been watching a lot of telly, I haven't been listening to the radio, I'm not on social media. So I think when you isolate yourself, and not in a negative way, I am speaking to people, but I'm isolating myself away from what's being talked about, and I think that's the healthiest place for me to be.
Eddie, we know you listen to this show. You told me. Simon, what would a winning competition like the FA Cup do for the perception of Eddie as a big-time manager?
In whose eyes?
Well, in your eyes, in the fans' eyes. You've been quite critical of Eddie not winning.
No, not true. I've been incredibly complimentary about Eddie and rode back from my original perception of him. But my overall perspective is, does he get them to the Holy Grail? The Holy Grail is that the Middle Eastern money is not there to participate in the Premier League. It's there to win the Premier League and win the Champions League. We've heard it out of the mouth of one of its shareholders. Do I believe, a bit like the Martin Luther King analogy, that I might not be there at the end, that Eddie Howe will be at the end picking up the silverware? I think it's doubtful. I think it'll be similar to other managers that have started at other football clubs that have got this huge revolution coming underneath them economically and ambition-wise, and they're part of a very significant journey, and he's a very significant part of it.
But this is big for Newcastle, surely, if they can win the FA Cup.
What, beating Sunderland? Yeah, I mean, I would have expected him to beat
No,
Sunderland.
winning the FA Cup.
Sure, yeah, but we've just sat here the last half an hour at the beginning of the show telling everyone how unimportant the FA Cup was. And how the Premier League and the big clubs in the Premier League only perceive the Premier League and the Champions League as being something of economic and substantive worth. The bottom line is, if Newcastle win anything, because they haven't won anything forever and a day.
59, since I think it was 59.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can talk on this one. I mean, when you win your first career trophy with a club, everything changes, doesn't it? As a manager.
Well, it gives you a bit more credit in the bank. I think Eddie's done a remarkable job up there, and he's bought well. But what I'd like to point to is Almiron and Joe Linton, how he's made players who you're thinking, they ain't Premier League players. They look proper Premier League players. So that's a big part of a manager's job, to make players better. He's done that. They have hit the wall in the last couple of months. I think the performances in the Champions League were good, but not good enough. And I think playing on that stage, without a shadow of a doubt, has taken, is it the eye off the ball or the pressure of playing in those big games and travelling and sleeping in different beds?
Do you think they win things
has
with
damaged
Eddie
them in the
Howe,
Premier League?
Graeme?
I'm with you. I think because we spoke about the Saudi money going into boxing and the influence they have and sport in general. I mean, they won't be tolerant of
because
failure.
they're linking the job to Sanchez, aren't they? The manager of Girona, I never know how to pronounce it, who's top of the Spanish league. They're already indexing that job.
Up until, if we go back a month, you're still talking about Newcastle being in front of where they thought they were going to be.
I think he's done a good job. Undeniable.
They avoided relegation not that long ago.
Yeah,
that's done.
So Eddie's done a good job. If you go back a month, as I've said, you're thinking Newcastle are in a good place. They're ahead of where they thought it would be. But they've hit the wall a bit. But he's now got to ride the storm, and that result at the weekend might just be the one that turns the corner
If
for
you
them.
say it's the FA Cup and they win it under Eddie, that surely makes a massive difference to Eddie Howe in the perception of everybody looking at Newcastle United at this stage. It made a huge difference to you when you came to Glasgow and you won the league in your first season. And I remember for a fact the impact that made and that was your first one. You won what?
Winning
11 trophies in 3 different countries.
Yeah. Winning trophies is the most wonderful feeling. If we're specifically talking about Newcastle, it would give Eddie so much credit in the bank because of 1959. Bobby Moncur's team. Did I say 58, 59? I was thinking it was 69. Bobby Moncur's team.
Fairs Cup.
They won the Fairs Cup.
Yeah.
So, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
For a big club.
For a club that size. So, him doing that would give him
but it's a massive
status.
Again, for him
statue for him.
I mean, it gets your critics off your back, doesn't it?
For a short period of time. That's the nature of working at Newcastle United. The roof is never far from falling in. You can go on a decent run, win 3 or 4 games back to back, and then you lose a game and then everything's wrong.
So in your first season at Liverpool, you won the FA Cup in 1992. Did that glory, if you like, could you only bask in that so long?
Not at all. Didn't bask it. I was brought up. My education at Liverpool was quite simple. The cups are the sort of poor second. Even winning the European Cup was a poor second. They thought winning the league said more about you as an individual, more about you as a team, and that was always a priority. And that goes back to when Shankly was manager there. It's all about winning the league. They felt that was the real acid test.
I mean, you wonder what Sunderland have got to do now under Michael Beale to get anywhere near.
Get into the playoffs. And come on. I mean, they're a club that's been in disarray for several years. They've dropped down from the Premier League after Ellis Short decided he didn't fancy it anymore to the Championship. Then from the Championship to League One. Took a few seasons to get out of League One.
Another owner who listened to their own people?
Perhaps, absolutely. But the point is they're back.
One of these owners, Jim, that think
they're back in the Championship.
I've heard of them.
There's been a lot of them.
They're back in the Championship.
They wear white boots in charity matches.
And score goals with them at Wembley.
And continues to wear white fisherman sweaters.
Oh, yes.
We're going fishing this afternoon.
I might have.
You were saying?
I'll catch a whopper in a minute. But the point is that Sunderland are just rebuilding. It's not fair. Newcastle have spent £300 million over the last 3 transfer windows. Sunderland have spent a packet of gobstoppers and a piece of string. Let's have it right.
I know it didn't all work out as well as you wanted it to work out, and that's an understatement at Newcastle United. Would you love to be at Newcastle United today with Saudi owners, the richest club in the world?
No, but I think there's restrictions. I mean, it is a great job, and from Rudiger to Kenny Dalglish, Kevin Keegan, although he did get, never won anything. You go to Newcastle, and you've obviously been there before as a player, or maybe took a team there, and you look at that stadium, you think, if we can get this right, I mean, that would be a special place. It really is. I mean, a full house there is something special to witness.
But I don't think Eddie Howe is going to win an FA Cup this season because he's still got to overcome the obstacles of some of the big clubs that are in it. And when you look at the difference between the managers, when you listen to Jurgen Klopp describe the game after the game against Arsenal, you know why this team is where it is. And you know what people that win leagues look like. And they look like Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola. They don't look like Eddie Howe and they don't look like Mikel Arteta.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.